We're a nation of amnesiacs. We forget everything that is important.
Why was no northerner in the January 15 coup?
Yeah. And why was there no Igbo officer in the counter coup?
It was a Araba. Muhammad called it Araba.
Was there any Yoruba military officer in the counter coup?
No, they went, the Yoruba to suffer for it now. They didn't tell them, particularly in Abeokuta, Alamala Barrack and all that. It was kept to the chest of northerners.
You know, they massacred Igbo officers in that barrack.
Oh, do you know Obasanjo and Nzogu slept on the same bed the night of January 15, 1966?
And Obasanjo is telling us he didn't know that that coup was going to take place.
Because Nzogu didn't mention it to him. To show you how much he respected and had confidence in Obasanjo.
They were friends.
And he didn't tell his friend, and they shared the same bed. He didn't tell him. He didn't tell Obasanjo.
Hello, everybody. Once again, this is Fred Nwankwo coming to you from our studios in Chicago with another edition of Bold Talk on Island TV. And as usual, I like to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, depending on where you are around the world. Nigerians, many years after you now know what happened and what led to the Civil War, and that you now know that Igbos were not responsible for the war, have you apologized to Igbos, your brothers? Have you apologized to Igbos in Asaba who fought with you, and what you paid them back for was to massacre their men? Today I'm bringing you some intricacies of the power play in Nigeria and trying to have Nigerians, ordinary Nigerians like me and you, leave this idea of tribalism and bigotry and know that we stand to benefit more when we work together, because these people are brainwashing us. They're all friends. Even during the Civil War, they were friends. There were Biafrans who would have been stuck in Nigeria behind the front lines, who would have been saved by Nigerian soldiers who were their friends before the war. And there were Nigerians who would have been stuck in Biafra and be saved by their Biafran friends who were friends before the war. We are not enemies. We are fighting fights and wars that have to do with greedy Nigerians from all tribes, brainwashing us just to benefit for themselves, their friends, and their families. We have to wake up, especially Igbos and Yorubas. We have to wake up and genuinely unite.
Even now, one Nigerian government, Monodica elect Nigeria, the car will go watch in the Asaba. Only watch or watch. Why be a quarter abu?
Nigeria, the car will go fudge in the Asaba. Only watch or watch. I be a quarter fabu. What the man said, what the elder, the Asaba elder said, is that Nigeria hasn't paid the price for the massacre they did in Asaba, to Asaba people. And he said, when you massacre people, you have to give the people an honorable burial. And Nigeria owes that to Asaba people.
What is the Biafran War? The Biafran War is essentially a war of self-determination. That's what it is. What you see happening in Bokos is the Biafran War. What you see happening in Kaduna is the Biafran War. Everywhere you see the Nigerian fighting the evils of the Nigerian state, what you see is the Biafran War all over again. As long as the people's capacities are constrained, as long as their right to self-determination is constrained, the Biafran War will never end. The totality of the Biafran War is about self-determination, the right of a people to become, to be human, to be treated as citizens. That is the totality of the Biafran war. Do you think it's by accident that the last constitution that was written by the Nigerian people for the Nigerian people is the 1963 constitution? It's not by accident. It is not by accident. It is the loss of citizenship that has placed us in a situation where military bandits have been the ones writing constitutions for all.
Oh, baby.
So we be wakpo anyị won Nigeria o village ọbụna kwadebe eyila akwa ọcha n'elu na anyị bịa nabata ndị oyi anyị anya emehọ na anyị bịa na ga-ese non dimities. That is goodbye till we meet no more.
That's a grown elderly man crying, weeping as he remembers that fateful day when he too almost lost his life.
1970 anyị bịa ka ije zụta ndị agha Nigeria bịa bụla egwu anyị mara na ọ bụ a game of death ka ịba n'ime ya nọ na iluzi wagadazi anyị n'ebu bịa singula ụmụ nwoke niile out ụmụ nwanyị bịa this side oge ka anyị afụzi they open fire. We will go machine gun gahube our people.
What he said there was that the military came in and made announcements for them to come out, and they thought they were coming out to herald their soldiers, Nigerian soldiers, into their town and make them familiar with the surroundings. They didn't realize that they were coming to meet their death, because the only plan that the Nigerian army had was to come in there and massacre the men. You heard him talk about the gunshots. Back, 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 back.
And they were slaughtered in thousands. Anyị nwa bụzi ndị nwe ike ịgbapụ ni bụ ndị ozu dakpudo n'azụ obero n'ebe ahụ. So nke na-ekwu ife a ofu onye afụm si mbanye na moto abanye na moto amụrụ na onwekwa another killing field ndị CMS n'ogbo sowa abịa n'ebe ọ na-ene ụmụ nwoke ka wajukwa ụmụ nwoke anyị wabịasị anyị igwe grave wabịasị anyị face ya the grave wasi anyị start saying your prayer. Ekpele ka na-ekpezi with other people. One Land Rover land ya. Oblubab Ali, my classmate na New Better College Onitsha. Ofuzi, I'm saying, Sonny, what are you doing here? He said, you know I'm from Asaba. It's to join my people. Ose mumu banyana moto zibo. Abiam banyana jeep where one other person, John Okonya, Amabanya, Anya the car drive from here to that place. They opened machine gun. The whole people there were mowed down. Ndị niile bụbu ụmụ nwanyị na-enifa. Ọ bụ ilu na-abọsa ozu maka nwa niile eji akwa ọcha. Ịbọsagide ozu fụ nke ịmali. Ibuluje ni ị na-aga ifu udene ka ọ nọ n'enu mmadụ na pọnchị afọ ya. Ife na agwa Nigerian government bụ na ọ dịka dị late. Nigeria dịka akwụ ụgwọ waji ndị Asaba. Onye gbu ọchụ ọkwa ọchụ. Wabịa akwa ọchụ agbu.
I'll say, may God help Nigeria. But I must say this, as an Igbo person, I have never been more proud about the position that Igbos hold in Nigeria than I am today. The reason being that the Igbo fight, the Igbo cause, is no longer being fought just by Igbos. It's no longer that lonely voice in the wilderness that's crying and everybody is saying, Igbo, yeah. Those Igbo people always making noise. Nigerians have picked up on the atrocities that their country has been committing against fellow Nigerians simply because many of them who are committing those atrocities cannot compete in an open field with Igbos. No, I didn't say Nigerians cannot compete. There's not a single thing an Igbo person could do in Nigeria that other well-intended progressive Nigerians cannot do. It is the bigots in Nigeria, the lazy ones, the only skill they have in Nigeria is the skill to divide and conquer. And when they are unable to divide and conquer, they have nothing going for them. So for them to survive in Nigeria, they have to divide and conquer. But to progressive Nigerians, Yorubas, Fulanis, Hausas, Edos, Ibibios, Ijos, Urobos, Edomas, Tivs, and across the board, we are more than them. Nigeria's progressive outnumber the crooked, atrocity-laden cabal. It's time for us to stand up and fight. Nigeria is worth fighting for, even if Nigeria is not worth dying for. And ironically, Nigerians have fought for Nigeria before. Forget all the lies, forget all the brainwash, forget all the tribalism, and also forget the disagreements that Zeke and Awolowo had. If we focus on the areas they cooperated, and then we focus on other things that happened before the Civil War, see a lot of cooperation between factions of Nigeria, especially Igbos and Yorubas, that today, due to brainwash, seem to think that each other is the enemy and the worst culprits against them in Nigeria. If Yorubas and Igbos can just learn how to leave the past alone, at least while we are Nigerians, until we decide to go our separate ways if we do. But at least while we are Nigerians, if we just learn to find the things that bring us together and ignore all those brainwashed things that separate us, we can build a formidable country where within 10 years, Nigerians will forget the difference between Igbos and Yorubas and Hausas and Edos and Ibibios and Ijos and Urobos and all that. The only reason those things are significant to us today is poverty, hunger, and the brainwash by the people who benefit from us being divided. We can do it. And to show you how much we can do it, I want you to, as I conclude, listen to this Yoruba man being interviewed by Edmondo Bilo, who happens to be probably one of the top radio personalities in Nigeria. But in this case, he's doing it on his YouTube channel. Just watch and think as you watch.
Agui Ronsi at that time was the head of the army. I am not sure he was part of the coup. Was he part of the January coup?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. Despite being the supreme commander, the GOC, he was the GOC of the Nigerian army, but later became the supreme commander on being appointed the military head of state. But he wasn't part of it. The master planner was Ife Ajuna, a graduate from the University of Ibadan. He consulted with his fellow Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzegu.
Hot-headed.
A revolutionary. Nzegu was a true revolutionary because in his broadcast on 15 January 1966, which can be Googled, he said, among others. The plan of this government, as you have rightly said, is to eliminate corruption, accusing Nigerian politicians of not only being 10%ers, they've graduated to 100%ers. Another focus, he said, was they were going to release Chief Obafemi Awolowo from the Calabar prison where he was serving a 10-year jail, put him as the head of state, and give him military muscle for 6 months. Upon the stabilization of the future Awolowo federal government, he, Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu, will resign his commission from the Nigerian army and go to the then South Africa to fight apartheid.
Have we recovered from that January coup and the counter coup?
If it had been executed the way it was planned to cover the whole country and not leave out a section, Eastern region, that's one. Two, Major Nzeogwu in his speech, and I still believe him till tomorrow, was they planned to take Awolowo out of Calabar prison because Awolowo was jailed on trump-up charges of treasonable felony. Install him. He said they will back him with the military might for about 6 months. Once Awolowo government stabilized, Nzeogwu said he was going to resign his commission in the Nigerian army and go to South Africa. That's a radical.
Now, there you have it. This video is not about who is right or wrong 50 plus years later. That's almost irrelevant. This video is about righting wrongs. Fixing Nigeria is something worth doing. What's worth doing is worth doing right. Nigeria owes Igbos an apology 50 plus years later, after all the propaganda and fabrications and lies have been debunked, and Nigerians now know that Igbos were not the cause of the war in 1967, and the 1966 coup was not an Igbo coup, which is the reason Igbos were massacred. Nigeria owes Igbos an apology. And the shame about it is that Igbos who fought on the side of Nigeria, Igbos in Asaba, who fought for Nigeria, not for Biafra, were gathered by Murtala Muhammad forces on the orders of Murtala Muhammad, and they were massacred. What Nigeria did in return to reward the Asaba massacre victims was to name the biggest airport in Nigeria, the Lagos International Airport, after a war criminal, Murtala Muhammad, and put his face on a Naira note. So when you go to those negotiation tables to negotiate for one Nigeria and a better Nigeria, if you have not apologized to at least the Igbos in Asaba, you really think Igbos are going to that table with an honest mind of trusting you as members of one Nigeria? That's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer it. But I know one thing. Every fair-minded Nigerian, regardless of their tribe, will support the idea that if we are going to live together, we have to apologize for the wrongs we do. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Fred Wonko coming to you from our studios in Chicago with another edition of Bold Talk on Allen TV. And until next time, good night and God bless.